Well, that was Moon in June, recorded in July 1969 by the Soft Machine. And as I'm sure Bill would be the first to admit, Top Gear did have an appalling name, and the drummer and singer on that, of course, was Robert Wyatt. What do you remember, Robert, of that? So do you remember any of those sessions? I mean, it was 14
yeah, I
years
remember
ago.
writing those words for there based on being in the place. I had a theory about it too, but I can't remember the theory, just the words. I also remember actually that at all that period of making music, when I had all my faculties and I was young and everything, as being the unhappiest period of my life when I could never get anything right.
Why particularly? I mean, you had very high standards.
Everything, I don't know, it just takes, I suppose I'm a slow developer, what they call, I don't know what it is. Anyway, it was still the time when everything was going wrong. Like, for example, as far as I remember, it's pretty much all flat. I mean, so flat that you probably think it's really interesting harmonically. It's not. It's probably a whole semitone flat.
That wasn't deliberate then, is what you're trying to say.
No, it's
people look back on this in retrospect and think it was quite.
If I was doing it right, people wouldn't have thought I was as complex musically as I was, as I ended up being.
I mean, looking back on it, I mean, it was 14 years ago. How do you remember those times? I mean, I remember the Soft Machine were always playing when Kevin Ayres, in fact, was in the group, all the avant-garde festivals in France, and then I remember seeing you in 69 when I was 15 or something. I think playing the Implosion concerts at the Roundhouse. What do you remember of those times? You know.
Well, this is a theory I've got that I can remember, and that is that we had to do things like that because national service in the call-up had finished, and it was a sort of equivalent of having to do your sort of 2 years' time of sort of hatred and pointless hard work, digging holes, filling them in, and so on. And that's how I remember it, really, as a kind of bitter civil war amongst musicians.
It was really like, I mean, was there no great friendship between the other people you were supposed to
Each of us had a lot of friends outside the group, yeah. I remember, it's not strictly relevant, except the contemporaries of ours. Nick Mason once was asked recently how the Pink Floyd had stayed together so long, and he said, because we haven't finished with each other yet.
Was it really as bad as that between the members of the Soft Machine?
Well, it's worse, because we had to really stop even trying after a while.
So the reasons that you never talked on stage is because you genuinely didn't get on?
No, we didn't, no.
Yeah. What about, I mean, roughly around this period, I mean, you had your very, very serious accident, which I should imagine a great many of the listeners probably don't know about, genuinely. When was that then?
I think it's about 10 years ago. I think it was 10 years ago.
And what happened? I mean, you fell from a window.
That's right. I fell 4 stories. Is it? They're called stories, aren't they?
They are stories.
Down from a drain pipe. Well, trying to hold on to a drain pipe, which was all right, the top bit, which was rusty, and then I got to a shiny bit. By which time I was sweating, so my sweat and the shininess, and I lost my grip. Yeah. So then 7 months in Stoke Mandeville, and I came out a new man, really.
And obviously, I mean, quite obviously, it's affected your life very, very greatly. I mean, you were going solo, and with the song we're about to play from the session, Alifib, recorded in 74, which is about your wife, and obviously about, you know, your dependence upon her being in this physical condition.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of agree with each other that it's a love song, although in fact I describe her as my larder, so I mean, I don't know, probably people would object to the idea that could be a love song, but it is, I think. And as you say, it's certainly a song of dependence. You know, I'm not sure that it's a healthy song, but it's how it was, how it seemed, yes, at the time.
My Lord,
Ali Fib from 1974, another from the early Robert Wyatt session we're replaying tonight. Well, Robert, obviously, we just talked before that about your accident and obviously the change in your life. You then started working solo. I mean, obviously, it cut down the number of choices you would have had for various instruments. I mean, you were a drummer, a very physical drummer. So now, obviously, you had to look for different instruments to use. How did you approach it?
Well, it was a good opportunity, really. It meant I could concentrate on doing fewer things with more concentration, rather than trying to do lots of things. And anyway, that makes sense. So it was quite good, really. I mean, the only trouble is doing enough. I mean, I write 2 or 3 songs every now and then, which I always have done, but now I don't do all the other stuff in between, like going around with a drum kit.
And, I mean, also, it sort of brought you to the fore more as a singer. I mean, I don't know how much at the time, in the late 60s, people thought of you as being a good singer. I mean, I think you're very much buried in the whole sound of the soft machine.
Well, musicians never thought of me as a good singer. In fact, they always used to write these pieces that they say, well, he's not going to be able to sing this. He's not going to be able to write words to it. So we're safe on this one. That was the sort of attitude from my comrades and groups.
Did you ever feel that?
So I was free from that too, you know.
Yeah.
I was free from all that group business.
What particular musicians did you like? I mean, this was well, not that I remember it that clearly, but I mean, 1974, well, it wasn't the most inspiring time in the history of pop music. I mean, were you affected by the kind of things that were going on at the time? Probably not.
I probably was, but I wouldn't be thinking about it. I've never liked rock music very much, and that's probably, I just sort of listen to things like jazz and so on, or almost anything else. I prefer pop music to rock music. And
What sort of pop music?
Well, you know, like I suppose nowadays you say Dionne Warwick, and everyone says Dionne Warwick, but I've always said Dionne Warwick. You know, so that's it.
What about the jazz musicians?
Relatively conventional taste there. I like right the way through. I like more and more of it now, the mainstream of jazz, right the way from Louis Armstrong and Fats Waller to Ornette Coleman and what people like Sonny Rollins and Archie Shepp are playing now.
Can you hear these shots in the background? This is Pastoral Twickenham we're talking in here. This is why there's these rifle shots going off in the background.
Upper class people killing things.
Is that what it is? I was going to say it's probably sort of swans or something. You know,
it's just a bit of vandalism going on in there. You know what they're like. You know, they can't help it. They're brought up like that.
Let's just get back to. We're going to play Soup Song in a moment. Any particular memories about this one?
The music was that much older. I mean, the music's just sort of fake boogie woogie, really, written by the Hoppers, Brian Hopper actually, and the words are just sort of. I just added words. That's all.
Here's a mushroom on my eyelid. There's a carrot down my back. I can see in the distance a vast quantity of beans. To you I'm just a flavour to make your stew taste nice. Oh my God, here come the onions, and I don't believe it, at least a pound of rice. There was a time when bacon sandwiches were everyone's favourite snack. I'm delicious when I'm crunchy, even when I'm almost black. So why you make a soup with me, I just can't understand. It seems so bloody tasteless, not to mention underhand. Now there's no hope of getting out of here. I can feel I'm going soft. Dirty waters soak my fibres. The whole saucepan's getting hot. So I may as well resign myself, make friends with a few peas. But I can't help hoping that a tummy ache will bring you to your knees. Bring you to your knees.
Soup Song, another one from the Robert Wyatt session of 1974. Robert, I mean, one of the things I've never been able to work out about you, is your approach to the whole business of making music. I mean, people seem in this business to be particularly conscious about success and selling a lot of records or whatever. I mean, I've never got the impression that you particularly cared. I mean, obviously you do care very much about the music you make and would like it to sell, but you seem very, I don't know, sort of philosophical about the occasions when it doesn't sell that well.
Well, I'm grateful to rock because I can't think of anywhere else but people like me could fit in. I mean, I haven't got sort of enough O-levels to fit in anywhere else. I mean, the one thing you don't need in rock is O-levels, apart from being able to sing. I mean, there's a lot of things you don't need in rock. I'm pleased about rock because it's sort of open. Let's be kind. It's open to anybody, really, who wants to call themselves a rock musician. And nobody can say, oh, look, I come from the Department of Rock at Essex University, and that is not rock music. There's nobody who knows whether it is or not. So if I say I'm a rock musician, that's what I say, Anyway, but for that, I mean, I'm actually not ambitious. I want to earn enough money so I can eat, enough food. I can't eat 8 meals a day. I could only eat 2 or 3, and I don't eat 10 meals a day. I don't want to heat a room like an oven. I only need enough heating to. I'm not ambitious. I just accept that I do want to earn a living at it, and you don't have to be fantastically successful to earn a living. In fact, the nearer I've found you get to success, the more people you get telling you what to do and sort of limiting your options in a rather sort of frightening way. So I prefer being more loose around the edges,
I wanted to play in a minute I'm a Believer, also from this session, which did in fact do reasonably well, didn't it? I mean, it was actually bought in some quantity.
Yes.
Did that mean that people sort of really changed their approach towards you and started thinking?
Yeah, but it was very cheeky. People can't say anything. Look, now they tried this. Look, you shouldn't have had a longer guitar solo there, not a violin solo in the middle. Now, when I was doing unsuccessful things, people weren't telling me what to do.
Exactly, yeah.
And suddenly I was in a world where people were saying, oh, Tony doesn't really like violin solos and things. I was saying, well, I'm going to go back to being unsuccessful. At least you can do what you like. So that's really that was the end of my.
That was your moment of glory.
Yeah,
that's right.
So much for glory. Yeah, with it. Yeah.
Why did you choose that song, in fact? I mean, obviously this was swimming against the tide of fashion to a degree. I mean, the Monkees are very popular now, of course.
Well, there was
then.
No, I always preferred what was called pop music to rock in a sense, simply because I thought, well, if you're not going to be John Coltrane, or if you're not going to be Art Blakey, then you're talking about pop music. And this sort of strange rock music had been invented, which was a kind of artistically pure version of pop music, whereby you weren't sort of vulgar like those people in pop. And I thought, well, so they've got all the status of art, but they can't even play instruments as well as pop musicians. So this is really unfair on pop. Pop's once again at the bottom of the pile. So I'm quite happy to acknowledge good pop songs, which are much harder to write than...
And that was one of the main reasons you wanted to resurrect this song, presumably.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, let's hear it.
Sunshine and not rain. was out to get me. That's the way it seemed. Disappointment haunted all my dreams. Then I saw her face. Now I'm a believer. Not a trace of doubt in my mind. I'm in love. I'm a believer. I couldn't leave her if I tried. I'm a believer. I'm a believer. I'm a believer. I'm a believer. I'm a believer.
I'm a Believer from '74 again, the Robert Wyatt session, which of course was a hit to some degree. You can't remember what position it got to, top 20 anyway.
No, I can't remember what position it was, but it got in that sort of range anyway.
But anyway, after that, you obviously went back to another prolonged period of less success, probably more welcome to you, I should imagine.
Well, after that, I started working more for other people actually, because they have to pay the studio if you do that, and I couldn't. It's very expensive doing your own projects unless they make more money than they cost.
Which particular things did you do that you know you have best memories of in that period?
Well, once again, I don't have many happy memories of it. I'm forward-looking. This is why, because I don't have many happy memories. Working with Mike Mantor on a thing called Hapless Child. I enjoyed that. And doing a bit of girly chorus on an old Eno record called Tiger Mounted by Strategy. I can't remember much else.
So you're obviously back to recording again at the moment. Where do you live? I mean, I think you live in Spain or something, don't you?
Yes, we've been there about 6 months now, and I'm really hardly here. I'm just here for this week, and we live about 20 minutes south of Barcelona.
Why did you want to live in Spain?
Well, actually, Elfie is a painter, and she likes the light in Spain, and she just wanted to be where the light is better and where it's easier to be. It's an easier place to be.
But what is it like then to come back and suddenly find that the kind of publicity machine is obviously very eager to expose you as much as possible? I mean, is that a bit of a shock?
It seemed a bit aloof not to... they said, look, come and give her a hand. Everyone else is doing a bit of work on this record. And it's all for you, you know. What are you doing, sitting there?
The least you could do is yeah.
What, is it, having a good time, are you, in Spain? Are you nice, is it, sitting about there? And while we're working for your record? I mean, I had to, so here I am.
Made you feel really bad, yeah. But I mean, the first time when it came out and you didn't do any promotion, I mean, obviously you wanted the record to succeed on its own merits rather than on the merits of the publicity it was getting.
Well, I haven't got a group, I haven't even got a microphone, I don't do live performances, I haven't got a manager, I haven't got an agent, I haven't got any sort of setup at all. I just did that song because Clive Langer and Elvis wrote it for me and arranged it in such a way that they thought it would be the kind of thing that I would be able to do. And it was. And it was just a gift, really, from them as far as I was concerned. And really I felt that my responsibilities began and ended with just sort of trying to justify the fact that they'd asked me to sing it. And I hope that I'd sang it, and they felt, well, that was right to ask him.
Do you not feel a little sort of cynical about the fact that the mainstream Radio 1 programming has now accepted the record because it's in the top 40, and yet they never used to play it? I mean, frankly, it makes me very, very angry when I hear that record played by people now who never touched it in the original days. They would be quite happy to play a Toto Coelho record or something, but they never touched it because they probably thought it was too slow and it wasn't even in the top 100. And they're now playing it and saying, what an evergreen classic and all that. You know what I mean? That actually makes me very angry. And do you share that, or are you sort of quite magnanimous about the whole thing and glad to have it played in the first place?
I'm surprised it's played in the context that it is. I mean, I don't mind it, and I'm happy that people play it if they wouldn't normally. I hadn't got any idea. See, it wasn't my idea, so I hadn't got any plans for it. I don't know anything about it except that I had to try and sing it right, and I've said this before. I don't know what it was for, or where it was meant to go, or how many copies they wished to make, and who they wanted to have them, or listen to it, or anything like that. So I can't get angry, or even sad, or even. No, I can't get happy. Of course, I think we know about it, so it's quite healthy, really.
But you were pleased with your performance on it. You seem to be playing yourself down somewhat.
Well, I was produced. Elvis was in the studio, and one line I kept forgetting, and so I had it written in front of me. And he said, I can't remember, but he said.
There's a trick question, isn't it? Carry on.
He said, look, getting out. He said, you sound as if you're reading that. Well, you know, I said, is it honest to sound as if you're reading something that you are reading, or is it more honest not to? I don't know. It's difficult, that. But anyway...
Was it written with the intonation of it? Was it written with you in mind? We were talking about this earlier, the words like diving. You pronounce the ing of diving. It's diving for pearls, you know. That sounds very typical of the Robert Wyatt intonation to me, and I wonder if that song was specially constructed for your personal delivery, as it were.
Apparently, although I got the demo I had, which is actually just as good as the final one, was with Elvis singing it. Incidentally, he's done a version of this for his new album.
Have you heard it?
Yes, I have. They played it to us the other day.
I don't know what the instrumentation would be on that, because...
Well, they got David Bedford doing some strings on it, and he's brought some interesting things out of the chords. They haven't used double bass. They've got, I think, maybe... And anyway, they dragged Chet Baker out of his hotel bedroom, where he's defecting from the totalitarian Stan Getz tour, and dragged him out to Tootle Wistfully Away, which is very record enhancing.
Yeah, have you heard it? Is it very, very different from your version? I imagine it must be.
Well, it's the same song, you know, but a different version. Yeah, that's how you have to say it. Yes.
So one of the things about the song is that it's obviously, to a surprising number of people, that don't actually realise, I think, without it being spelt out in black and white, that the song is about the Falklands War. You know, I mean, I think a lot of people genuinely do think it's about people tinkering around in the shipyard, rivets and sort of hammers, and you know what I mean, and breaking bottles of champagne over the bows and things. And it seems extraordinary that. I mean, obviously you didn't want it to make a clearer point. I mean, the irony comes through, I think, a lot more as it stands now.
I probably shouldn't talk for Elvis Costello in this case, who wrote the lyrics. But he's quite funny about this. I've noticed this with his other record he's just brought out. He says, look, I don't want to it's like explain the joke or whatever. I don't want to talk about the politics because it sort of takes away from the subtlety of the art. But he says, but I was sitting there thinking, well, I see, that's how they're dealing with our youth today. They're training them all to just go off and sort of get slaughtered and slaughter people. And in other words, he says a totally political, clear thing. Having said, you know, I'm not going to...
The song speaks for itself, and then
it's the song speaks for itself, and this is what it says, which is great. I was really pleased, because I like it when people sort of come out of their subtlety shell for a bit and to say, this is a very angry song. And in fact, it's a song imagining a shipbuilding father whose son is sent off to be killed in the ships that he and his mates build. And that's the kind of country we live in today. It's a very clear political song.
Is it worth it? A new winter coat and shoes for the wife, and a bicycle on the boy's birthday. It's just a rumour that was spread around town by the women and children. Soon we'll be shipbuilding. Well, I ask you. The boy said, Dad, they're going to take me to task, but I'll be back by Christmas.
Robert Wyatt's Shipbuilding, which went from 37 to 35. In fact, in this week's Gallup chart singles poll has been cruelly edged out of a Top of the Pops appearance by the advent of some football match. It's amazing how long the programming system seems to have ridden roughshod over this record. Justice would be a fine thing. And before that, in the course of that conversation, you heard I'm a Believer, the old Neil Diamond song, Soup Song and Ali Fib. And before that, from 1969, The Moon in June. I really liked the bit in there, the line about all our mates like Kevin, Caravan and the old Pink Floyd. And the thing about Nick Mason saying that the reason the Pink Floyd hadn't broken up yet because they hadn't quite finished with each other yet.